Hey guys, how's it going? This is Jeff. So today we're going to make a video about law enforcement in Hawaii. You know, it's kind of a unique subject because the way that Hawaii enforces laws is kind of over enforcement, and at the same time it's lack of enforcement. I say it's over enforcement because they have a lot of laws on the books. They've enforced a lot of laws on the books, but they don't carry them out in the force always, but they can. For example, there is a law that says that all residents must own a boat in Hawaii, but it is not enforced. I don't know the exact reason for why this would have been established, this particular law, but the only thing I can think that comes to mind is that because we live on islands, if there was a reason for someone to get on a boat, or I mean, if people had to, leave, they'd have to get on a boat to save themselves. As you can hear in the background, people driving like maniacs. They love to do that here. People speed here, even though they say it's island style, island pace. I mean, I'll walk down the road and I'll count how many cars will speed, and usually it's 1 out of 3 cars are speeding. The only time the law enforcement, the cops, actually bust people is if there's been a series of tragic car accidents. Then they'll go ahead and enforce the law. For example, there was a time when there was quite a bit of traffic accidents that were fatalities, I think back in October and September, and it took the law enforcement agency here in Kona in particular a couple months to figure out how to curb it. But then when they did, they really dropped the hammer and just started writing a bunch of tickets for people texting and driving. So they would set up over at Old Airport, and because it's an easy place to just pick people off and give them tickets for texting and driving, they would just line up like 6 cops, just like regular cars, facing you, waiting for you to go like this on your cell phone while you pull into the park, and then they would, ticket you. And then I actually got a ticket, and then I got a second one. That was completely my fault both times. The second time was definitely just out of control why I did that. It was like a force of habit. It's like whenever I come into a park, it's like I'm coming into the state of mind of just relaxing, so my train of thought would have me pick up my phone. Anyway, I did get that second ticket, and I talked to the officer, and I'm like, so what gives here, guys? Why are you guys ticketing people at a park? And he's like, well, we had some, a series of accidents that happened, and most of them were associated with texting and driving, so they decided to enforce the texting and driving law. By the way, it's a $300 ticket each time you get one of those. It's a lot. I mean, I said to him, but why don't you guys enforce the traffic, the speed demons out there that go 10 to 15 miles over the speed limit everywhere they go? Whatever you want to call them, speed demons, I don't know. Speedsters, Speedy Gonzalez's, who knows? But I was walking down the road, I was like, the cops, they should pay me to hold just a radar gun, and anytime I see someone run a red light or, do that while I'm walking, I'll just take that radar gun and just zoom in on their license plate, and if they're speeding, it's like a photo radar, but except I'd be just on foot, just doing it from the side of the road. And I was thinking, I'm not trying to make people go bankrupt, but if they're gonna speed like that and be fairly dangerous, give them $50 tickets each time. At some point in time, they'll get sick of getting $50 tickets for speeding. Because one thing I don't like about fines is when they're like $300. That's when you start affecting people's, livelihoods. $300 a pop or anything more than that. But $50, it's a nuisance where at some point in time you say, I'm sick of getting charged $50. And as someone who's walking on the side of the road, I really do not like when someone blazes by me on a road that's 35 and they're clearly going 50, 55, 60, and then you got the hot shots in their cars that make noise, and those guys or girls, whatever case that may be, they like to turn corners real fast, speed, and they don't look both ways. And sometimes you'll be like, "Whoa, guy! Did you almost hit that person?" Or when they come into a parking lot, you'd think, where's the law enforcement for this? But yet they're ticketing people at the park for texting and driving. So with law enforcement on this, they're selective, and they basically make knee-jerk reactions to what they want to enforce. Marijuana. It's only legal to smoke marijuana if you have a card, if you're a card holder of medical marijuana. However, many places in Hawaii, you'll be walking and you will smell cannabis being burned, smoked, inhaled. But the cops, they don't enforce the law. People will casually smoke in front of police officers outside the precinct even, and nothing happens. So they don't really enforce marijuana laws. I'm not saying they should, I'm just saying that that's how they operate. It's illegal to sleep outside on a beach, but if you go to Old Airport, there's at least 10 to 15 different setups right there on the beach, just posted up, hanging out, some of them living really nice. I met a guy who had like a queen size mattress and a duvet comforter with his like really nice setup right there on the beach, just right there on the beach. He had rocks, he built a rock wall around it, and then put the tarp over it. And inside there, you'd like open up his little thing, and you'd see like a nice mattress that made up the whole area. And then he had like a duvet comforter. I was like, "Where'd you get the duvet, man?" He's like, "Oh, I just got it." I was like, "Good for you, okay." But if everybody did that, just decided they wanted to live on the beach, I'm sure more people would be coming here. So that's not good for the homelessness problem in Hawaii if you're letting people just go be homeless and live on the beach, right? But selective enforcement of law. And I'm not here to advocate for strict law enforcement, because I'm sure there's many things that I've done that could be, I don't own a boat, for example. So there's little things out there that, I'm sure I do. I'm sure I've been a speeder, I've been speeding before. Try not to speed, but in my younger years, I definitely did. But I definitely got tickets for it. What are some other laws? Oh, here's another law enforcement thing that you might not know about. Billboards. There's a reason why you never see billboards in Hawaii. They are illegal. Or they're just not here. Here's a little bit of a list. It's illegal to poison fish or pop dynamite or electric current in the boat. Yes, people have done this in the past. If you are in possession of a shark fin, you can be imprisoned for 1 year. It is illegal to feed sharks. Then there's just some dumb laws like it's illegal to pose next to a statue in Waikiki while you're in a bathing suit. It's illegal to get a tattoo behind your ear or on your eyelid without a physician around. It is illegal to have more than 15 dogs and cats in a home. It's illegal to annoy birds at any visiting state park. I'm just going through it. This one's a little bit weird, but I don't know how you respond to it. You might get a chuckle, or some of you might say, "Whoa, that's too much information." In Hawaii's Orokama tribe, men are not allowed to eat their second wife. I'm not sure about the first one though. That's what it says. So I guess it's illegal to eat the second wife, right? It used to be illegal to leave home without knowing where you're going. Always know where you're going. And here's the one about residents can actually be fined as a result for not owning a boat. Riding in the back seat of a vehicle with no seatbelt. However, all seats are already occupied. You can ride in the truck bed of a pickup truck with no safety equipment without being punished. I guess if the truck's full and you're in the truck bed, it's cool. An individual may only have one alcoholic drink in front of them at any given time. Coins are not allowed to be placed in your ear. This one came up on a couple different resources. I don't know what the big kick is on that. And then the billboard one. So, Department of Land and Natural Resources, they are the ones that tend to be the bad guys when it comes to enforcement around the water areas, or land, obviously, natural land and resources. They pick and choose when they want to make a huff and puff about, swimming with dolphins, swimming with wildlife. Sometimes they go overboard, sometimes they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and sometimes they're completely just in what they're doing. But I've heard it go both ways, where some of the guys, they just love to be super cranky. And then I've heard that some are very lax and easygoing. So, like I said about the law enforcement, technically you're not supposed to, you can't like buy a piece of property and then just build a tent or put an RV on it and live there. That's what I've been told. But I've seen people who do that. They basically buy a piece of property and camp out on their property for however long it takes to build their house. Supposedly you're not allowed to do that, but doesn't that sound like a good idea, right? I mean, it's one thing to let people camp on the beach if they don't own the property, but it's another thing to let you camp on the beach if you do own, or camp near the beach if you own the piece of property, right? But both supposedly are not legal. I mean, another thing about RVs and, those Volkswagen Bugs or anything like that, people, if that was to get out of control, I'm sure they'd enforce that law where people were just like, I'm going to buy an RV or a Volkswagen Bug and just cruise around the Big Island for 6 months, right? And everyone would be just parking on the side of the road. In theory, you'd be like, well, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Why would they not allow that? Like, that sounds cool, right? But they make a big deal about it. And, I mean, I've seen them decide to enforce laws at campsites, and I've seen them decide not to enforce laws at campsites. What I mean by that is when you run a campsite, you're also supposed to pay per person at the campsite. Sometimes they'll come up and be like, all right, I see you guys paid your $15 for this campsite, but did you pay for each individual one of these people? And they'll be like, I thought I told you guys you're supposed to do that, but I'll let it slide this time, stuff like that. So the most of it is just like knee-jerk reactions from the top. There's a lot of laws that could be enforced, but they don't enforce all of them. And if they did, I'm sure they'd be overburdened, but they'd be really wealthy because they'd collect a lot of fines. It's like most of the places probably, but there's just a little useless information, but useful information from Hawaii. If you enjoy this channel, or if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you.